Okay. This is of learning. Should have this in English. For Shlema, whatever that means. And Yechiel Nasim Ben Sarah for Shlema. We're going to start Dalet Amid Aleph from the word Tanya. Yeah, it's about maybe 12 lines from the top. The first word on the line, Tanya. Achirim Moimrim Mishum Rabbi Eliezer. We have a Beitza. Beitza tells us, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, Achirim says, Beitza Toichal Hi Ve'ima, that the egg you can eat, the egg and the mother. All right. Talking about on Yom Tov, the egg that was laid on Yom Tov. You can eat the egg and the mother. Mara asks, the Maya Skina, what's our case? If we're dealing with an egg that you could eat the mother anyway, it's the chicken was designated for food. In other words, the owner of these chickens probably has some that he's going to shecht and some that he uses to lay eggs. So which chicken and egg are we talking about? We said, okay, let's say we're talking about the one that's designated to eat. It's going to be shechted. So the Gemara says, Pshita dehi ve'ima sharya. Then obviously you could eat it. What are we saying? We're saying that if we're going to follow the opinion of Beis Shammai, that holds that an egg that's laid on Yom Tov is mutter to eat, so the chiddush was the egg. The mother we always knew you could eat. Beis Shammai was lenient about Naila, or Muktzah, or whatever it was, Hachana. All of that was a chiddush of the egg, but the mother never had a problem. So what is the chiddush of when it says pshita dehi ve'ima? What's the chiddush of ima? That you can eat the chicken. You have to tell me you can eat the chicken. The chicken never had the shaila on it. Ella, okay, it must be b'tana goyla say medes legadol beyin. It's the other way. It's the chicken that Taka has a problem. Because this chicken was designated to lay eggs, it's not really food. And there's an issue of muktzah with the mother. So then why are we saying hivi ima muteres? It's really hivi ima asura. Then it's a real problem. So in other words, it goes like this. Either you say that there's no chiddush, or if you're going to make a chiddush, then it's too big of a chiddush. It doesn't work. So now the only issue here is, what does it mean hivi ima asura? Maybe it's Beis Shammai's opinion that holds that it's mutter, that there is no such thing as muktzah. So Rashi over here says, hivi ima asura, that's Rashi. It says, we know from other places that Rabbi Eliezer, who's being quoted here, holds of muktzah. So if it's an issue of muktzah, then it's asur. And we had other ways of looking at it, that it wasn't an issue of muktzah. We thought maybe it would be a chicken that was designated for food, that was going to be shechted, then it's not a muktzah issue. But if you're going to tell me it's a muktzah issue, then it should be asur. So Amar Rab Zeira. Rab Zeira says, Teichal agavima. What this Beitza means is that we don't know the status of this egg. But if you're going to eat the mother, you can eat the egg too. It goes like this. Hey Chidami, what's the case? Amar Abaya, Kagan Shalach Chastam. Abaya explains that you bought this just because it was on sale. Stam, you didn't say what you were buying it for, not because you needed a chicken to eat it, because you needed a chicken to lay eggs. You bought it stam. Yeah, that's what happens with sales. You lose money. You buy it for no reason. So nishchata, if he shechts it, then huvra de la achilai medes. Then it becomes clear that he bought it for eating. In other words, what he does determines why he bought it. So, but if he doesn't shecht it, and obviously he just wants it to lay eggs. As he didn't designate it. What's going to designate it is going to be his action. So when it says that you can eat the egg and the mother, what it means is if you eat the mother, you can eat the egg. It's dependent. It's going to determine what's the status of this egg. Okay, that's Reb Zeir's pshat, the way Abaye explains it. Rav Mari Amar Guz Maktani. Rav Mari says we don't really mean that there's a chiddush that you can eat the mother. What we mean is you can eat the whole thing. You can eat the whole thing. That's all we mean. The Tanya was taught in the Beitza. Acher Maimre Mishum Rabbi Eliezer. Beitza Teichel Hiva Ima ve'Afreach Bekli Pasei. You can eat the egg that's laid on Yom Tov. Its mother, and the chick, and the peel, and the shell. So this price is more elaborate, has more details there. And what we're going to prove is that elaboration is really just an exaggeration, and don't take it serious. There's no chiddush in each of those. It's just an expression. And so to our price also is just an expression, and it doesn't really mean that there's any extra halacha there. My klipa say, what does it mean, the shell? Ilema klipa mamish, if it means that you can eat the shell. Klipa basachili, anyone eats the shells. There's no, it's not even edible, the shell. That's one of the worst feelings. To have the egg, the shell. That and the nails on the blackboard. Okay. So klipa basachili, ella efrayach beklipasai. What it means is you can eat the chick while it's still in the shell. Now, this is more than a blood spot. This is the whole chick in the shell. The Gemara says 1 second. No one holds that. It happens to be that there's a machlokes even after the chick hatches. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says for 1 entire day you can't eat that chick. It's still considered inside the shell, as if it's inside the shell. Why? Because it didn't open its eyes yet. It takes about a day for the chick to open its eyes, and it's still considered a sheretz until it starts to jump around with its eyes open. So it goes like this. The rabbis, an egg naturally, yeah, this is totally normal. It's not part of the mother? No. Yeah. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov has a stringency that you have to wait 1 day before you eat the eggs. No, that's not what he holds. I don't have to wait 1 day. I have to wait 1 day before I shech the little chick. That's what he holds. So we're saying that you can eat the chick in the shell. We're like, really? I know this is strict opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov that has to wait a day after it gets out of the shell. In the rabbis hold that no, once it hatches, you can shecht it. But before it hatches, everyone agrees you can't eat an egg that has a chick inside. That's a sheret. That's a isser of sherets. It's like a creeping creature that like an insect. You're not allowed to eat them. This is machlokes if it's a sheretz or a nevela. There's a discussion on it. Okay. Ella efrayach v'klipasei gusma. What did we mean over here that you can eat the chick and the shell? That's all an exaggeration. So hachanami teichel hivim gusma. Also in our brisa, which says almost the same thing, just without that extra elaboration. Really, the whole thing, even the word the mother is also an exaggeration. The chiddush is that you can eat the egg. Okay, so we had a brisa. We gave a possible explanation according to Reb Zeira, that there's it has to be determined, and then we gave Rav Mari's explanation of the Beitza that there's really no chiddush there. Itmar. There's a statement made by Amirayim with the Machlekes. Shabbos v'Yom Tov. Let's say Yom Tov is on Sunday. Rashi adds in the same thing would be the opposite. Let's say Yom Tov is on Friday. So I have 2 days of Shabbos. 2 days of Yom Tov, rather. One of them is Shabbos. Yeah, I went to this teacher's thing about the Holocaust, teaching the Holocaust. We were in Israel for 10 days at Yad Vashem. So it was all teachers, all like really wonderful people. But it was just a few from people. Most of them were not religious. Jewish teachers. There was one lady. She was the rebbitzin of a conservative rabbi somewhere in Canada, I don't know, Ottawa or something. Anyway, she says that she gets along with the Chabad rebbitzin better than her congregation. That's what do you mean? So she says, like, when I tell the Chabad rebbitzin, it's a 3-day Yom Tov coming, so we relate to each other, but the congregation doesn't know what I'm talking about. Okay. So here we have a 2-day Yom Tov. It's Shabbos and Yom Tov. Rashi says it doesn't matter which way it goes, at least at this point. Rav Amar Nolda B'Seh Asura B'Seh. An egg that's laid on the first day is going to be usher on the second day. Rav Yechanan Amar Nolda B'Seh Muteris B'Seh. Rav Yechanan says no. Laid on this day, it's mutter on the other day, on the second day. Okay. Nema kasavarav kedusha achasi. We could say, how do you want to explain this? What's the basis of this machlokes? Rav must hold that when I have Shabbos and Yom Tov, they join together as one kedusha, and anything that's usher on one day is usher on the second day as well. The problem is that when it comes to making an Eruv, I want to walk in one direction on the first day, I want to walk in another direction the second day. Rav says that halacha is like the 4 elders that ruled according to Rabbi Eliezer that say that you're allowed to do that, which means that it's really shtei kedushas. So the egg that's usher for both has to have a different explanation. Because if it's just kedusha achas, that we know that's not accurate. Rav doesn't hold of that. Elahacha ba'achana derabba k'mifudi. Rav is le'achana derabba. Rabbi Yechanan is le'achana derabba. Our first explanation, our second explanation, our first explanation of why the egg that's laid in Yom Tov is also was Rav Nachman. He said it has to do with muktzah and noila. The second explanation was Rabbah, where Rabbah says that it needs to be prepared on a weekday. A weekday prepares for Shabbos, and something that's prepared on Shabbos for Yom Tov is Aser. It's called Achana de Rabbah, the preparation of Rabbah. Why is it Achana de Rabbah? Because Rabbah has this chumrah that even if you didn't do the preparation on Shabbos, it was done naturally on Shabbos because the egg was laid on Shabbos. That prepared it really. It doesn't have to be laid on Shabbos. That's a little problem here. The way we learned it before was that it wasn't laid on Shabbos. It was laid on Yom Tov, but yesterday was Shabbos, and it was prepared. It was prepared on Shabbos. It was a finished product on Shabbos, even though it didn't come out till today. That's the way we learned it before. Now I think it's being adjusted slightly, and that if it's being laid on Shabbos, that's a preparation for Yom Tov. That's the finished product being laid. So I think it's changing a little bit. Okay. Whatever the case is, Rav holds of Hachana de Rabbah, And Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold up a Chana D'Rabba, and therefore, we actually said this already. We said that Rabbi Yochanan held that there was the issue of mashkin shizak. What's the problem with the egg on Yom Tov? Because it's similar to juices that oozed out of a fruit. He doesn't have any issue of hachana, that it needs to be prepared on a weekday. Rabbi Yochanan didn't say this. The chiddush that we're getting now is that Rav holds of hachana d'Rabba. Yeah, you can really ask over here. Yeah, what I mentioned that it gets adjusted a little bit. The explanation. Taisus asked that question. Taisus asked this. But what you can really ask over here is that before, when we were lining up the explanations for the Mishnah, we had Rav Nachman and we had Rabbah, and then we had Rav Yosef, and then we had Rav Yitzchak. Amongst that, we said that, Rav Yochanan holds like Rav Yitzchak. Now what it could have done is it could have said, Rav holds of Rabbah. Rav is the same generation as Rav Yochanan. That would have been a great support. It could have done that. Yeah, anything that's... Yeah. Yeah. Let me repeat the question. Nathalie has a question about fruits that aren't ripe on the first day, but they ripen on the second day. That's the same idea. I have to look that up. And because we did that. Let's wait. We're going to get into two-day Yom Tov. Let's see. That's a question. Okay, whatever the case is, though, Rav has Achana D'Rabba, and that's why if it's late on one day, it's also on the next day. And Rabbi Yochanan doesn't have that. And the Gemara says, Kitanoi, this is actually an earlier machlekes. Nolda b'Shabbos teichel b'Yom Tov teichel b'Shabbos. The first opinion, the Tanakama, says that if it's late on Shabbos, you can eat it on Yom Tov, and if it's late on Yom Tov, you can eat it on Shabbos. Rabbi Yudah, Mishum Rabbi Lezer, Daini machlekes b'Shamim teichel b'Silam loy teichel. The same machlekes that you have, if it's late on Yom Tov, that's exactly the same machlekes if it's late on the second day Yom Tov. That's the same machlekes if it's late on the first day Yom Tov. It's the same machlekes. Continues on, which means that there's a discussion of Achana D'Rabba even in amongst the Tanoim. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Ush Pezichne the Ravada Barava. The host of Ravada Barava, Havlu Hanach Be'em Yom Tov Shabbos. He had these eggs, and the first day was Yom Tov, and the second day was Shabbos. Okay, so he has eggs that are laid on Friday. And Friday is Yom Tov. Also Lekame. So the host has Ravada Barava there. It's so convenient. So he asks him, Shaila, can I make roasted eggs? They used to roast eggs on the fire. They wouldn't do it, I guess, more like the way they come in a challenge. They wouldn't do it like in a... wants to like as if it would be boiled, like hard boiled, but they would do it just directly over the fire. He wants to roast it. The only thing is tomorrow Shabbos. He wants to eat it tomorrow. He knows he can't eat it today. It was late today. But he wants to eat it tomorrow, which according to Rabbi Yochanan should be fine. The problem is that tomorrow Shabbos, you can't roast an egg on Shabbos. That's a malacha. You're not allowed to cook on Shabbos. So he made an erev tafshilin. So he can cook from Friday to Shabbos to prepare. Amalei, my daitach. So Rav Ada bar Abba says, what's the problem? Rav Rabbi Yochanan halacha Rabbi Yochanan. Whenever there's a machlekes Rav and Rabbi Yochanan wins. So the halacha should be Rabbi Yochanan. It should be that there's no problem eating it tomorrow. However, I feel Rabbi Yochanan like a shariel gemel amacher. Rabbi Yochanan only allowed that you can eat it tomorrow, but today it's muktzah. Tanya, and I'll prove it to you. Achas be'eshinol de b'Shabbos, v'achas be'eshinol b'yom tovin metalta miln oisa leilachasas be'sakeva b'lismat kariyamita. We had the brisa. We learned it on Friday. That's the brisa that had in it also. If it gets mixed into 1,000, it's never bottled. In that brisa, it said that it's muktzah. You can't use the egg for anything. So, what does Rabbi Yochanan mean that you could eat it tomorrow? Well, if you want to eat raw eggs, because you can't cook it tomorrow, but you can eat it raw. What about maybe I can cook it today for tomorrow? He says no. Today it's muktzah. The brisa says clearly that you can't even use it to stand up a bed. If you want to put it on its side to hold the bed, to raise it off the floor a little bit. We do say that eggs is a problem with Bishalakum. We say it is a problem. Because people usually don't eat it raw. Right. Have we changed the halacha about fish yet? Does fish bishalakum? Does fish need to be bishalakum because of sushi? Need to be bishal strong enough. It's about it. Yes, well, people eat it now. Right. That's only the last, 20 years, 30 years. Switch. In Japan, it never needed to be bishal strong. Okay. Here we just learned that even though we would pass like Rabbi Yochanan, but that doesn't mean that you can cook it on the first day. Why? Because it's muktzah. Ushbezichni the Rav Papa, the host of Rav Papa, the Amrila, and there are those that say that it's Ahu Gavra Dasil Kami the Rav Papa, that it wasn't his host. It was another guy, a fellow, a rabbi, I guess. He comes in front of Rav Papa. He has these eggs that were laid on Shabbos, and the following day is Yom Tov. Can I eat them tomorrow on Yom Tov? This sounds like no problem. Sounds like it's great, right? I mean, Rabbi Yochanan says that there's no problem tomorrow, but tomorrow is Yom Tov, so he can cook them. And they were late today on Shabbos, so there's really this should be an easy answer. However, Amalei Zilid Nevasalamacha. He says, I can't answer you now. Come back tomorrow. It's Shabbos afternoon. It's like at the Fabrengen or something. Rav, like Muki Amari, Rav, once they had the meal, Rav wouldn't give it another drasha because Rav would paskin halachas in the drasha, and they would drink wine. Couldn't paskin. Yeah. So Rav Papa says, I don't want to paskin now. We already had the meal. We're in the middle of the Fabrengen or something. I'm not paskin. Come back tomorrow. It's not relevant today anyway. So Kiyas when he comes the next day, Amalei, he says, Eichu hashta. I don't know what these words mean. I mean, I know what hashta means. Hashta means now. Unless it's some other word. Eichu. Rashi says, if I would have paskined yesterday, I would have made a mistake. If taloi, I would have forgotten. Va'amri lach, I would have told you, it's good basically that I postpone this psak. Because what I would have said was, Rav Rabbi Yechanan halachic Rabbi Yechanan. I would have said that the halachic Rabbi Yechanan is for sure mutter. However, that's a mistake. Because Ha'amar Rava actually said, Hilchasa kavasei de Rav bahani tlas, that the halacha is actually like Rav. And this is one of the exceptions in these three cases, which we're going to learn today. Bein lakula, bein lachomer. So one of them is Shabbos and Yom Tov. You're not allowed to eat it on the next day because of Achanat Rabbah. Rabbah Paskin like that. On these charts, just let me see what's going on. I have Rabbi Yechanan here that allows it. You can't really see it, but you see at least the location. I have Rav here that forbids it, and then I have Rava down here, a later generation, that he says that we have to pass them like Rav. So the halacha would be the way Rava rules. Okay, and he says that there's three cases. We're going to learn them. The first case was Shabbos and Yom Tov, one after another, that if it's late on one day, you can't eat it on the next day. The next case we're going to learn is Shnei Yom Tov Sheni of Galius, right? The way we do in the diaspora, we have 2 days. What's going to be if it's late on one, and can you eat it on the other one? And then we're going to have 2 days Rosh Hashanah. Okay, basically 2 days. You have 3 cases of 2 days where we're going to pass them like Rav. Rav's not going to be strict in all of them, but he's definitely strict about Shabbos and Yom Tov, that you can't eat from one to the other. Amar Rabbi Yechanan says the following: Eitzim shenashrim min hadekel b'Shabbos asur la'asikin b'Yom Tov. I don't know if this is the smartest idea, but if you do have a oven right under a tree, so when branches fall off the tree, they fall straight into the oven. So he says if it fell on Yom Tov into the oven, you're not allowed to light it on Yom Tov. Why? It's muktzah. The wood was attached to the tree, the branch. It fell off the tree. It's muktzah. Val teshiveni beitza. Oh, I'm telling you the next case about the tree under the oven. The oven under the tree. This, it doesn't say that the oven is under the tree. It just says that it falls off the tree. You can't take it for firewood. You can't take it for firewood. Val teshiveni beitza. Don't tell me that there's really no. Oh, one second. I'm not explaining this right. There's 2 days here. It fell off on Shabbos, and the following day is Yom Tov. Now, Rabbi Yechanan held that from one Shabbos to Yom Tov, there was no problem. So it fell off on Shabbos. You should be allowed to use it on Yom Tov. At least that's what Rabbi Yechanan held by an egg. Rabbi Yechanan says, no, this is different. So why should this be different? My time, what's the difference? It says, Beitza mishum to be emanami chasi l'goyim of l'kashari le'yad l'machar maybe other the basiyim asura. We have a concern. So Rabbi Yechanan says that theoretically, if it's late on the first day, let's say on Shabbos, so we can't cook it on Shabbos. Of course, it's Shabbos. And I have another problem of it's late on Shabbos. That's a second problem. And it's muktzah because it's late on Shabbos. It's called, for Rabbi Yechanan, it would be mashkin shizak. Right? It was like the juice that came out. So whatever the case is, there's 2 issues here. One is the cooking of it, and the other one is the actual eating it, whether it's cooked or not. Now, what Rabbi Yechanan says is that if I don't eat it today, raw, which is theoretically I could have eaten it raw, but I don't. I eat it tomorrow. So then what I've done is I've demonstrated that I know the halacha, that a beya shenolda on Shabbos is aser. How do you demonstrate that? Well, you didn't swallow it raw, which people do sometimes. They do eat raw. So we know that you know the halach. But when it comes to the wood, the leichazali yemayu. On Shabbos, what are you supposed to do with the wood? It's not like the egg that you could have eaten it raw, could have gargled raw eggs, fasten or something. So ishari lulamachar, if we would allow you to burn it the next day, which is Yom Tov, we could think that really on Shabbos it would have been mutter also to use. Problem is that it's Shabbos. But if Shabbos would have been Yom Tov, I would have thought that you're allowed to burn it on Yom Tov. The whole problem was that it was Shabbos. In other words, Shabbos, the difference between an egg laid on Shabbos and wood on Shabbos, wood that falls off the tree on Shabbos, and the following day is Yom Tov. The egg on Yom Tov I'm allowed to eat, and the wood on Yom Tov I'm not allowed to burn, is because I've demonstrated that I recognize the halacha that an egg laid on Shabbos is aseh. And it's only because it's the following day that it becomes mutter. But by the wood, I've never demonstrated that. I've only not burnt the wood on Shabbos because of the isser to burn wood on Shabbos. But the isser muktzah, I've never demonstrated. Yeah. Okay. Now goes the case that I was jumping ahead before. Amar of Masna, Eitzim Shenashim in Adekel Techatana B'Yamtiv. If wood falls off the tree and falls straight into the oven. So Rav Masna says, Mar Baleim Eitzim Muchanim Masikan. Rav Masna says you're allowed to add extra wood. Everyone in those days had a pile of wood. You can take it from the pile, put it into the oven, and you can burn it all together. Eitzim Shenashim in Adekel. It's even if it's 2 days, it's asur on the second day. Here you're saying it's mutter right on the day that it fell in. Gemara asks, but while you're turning over the wood, setting up the fire, you're moving this, that's the muktzah wood. Gemara says, well, it's not a problem. Because given the ruba de teirinenu, you have the majority here is heter. So we consider the whole thing heter. It's batal. Gemara says, whoa. But how did it become batal? You added in wood to be mevatal. You're not allowed to do that. By truma, there was this discussion. Truma is batal 1 in 100. Let's see, it fell into 1 into 99. So the Mishnah says that if you add one extra one, it becomes batal, but only if you added it b'sheikik, by mistake. If you do it b'mezid, there's a problem of mevatal isel lechatchila. You're not allowed to do that. You can't add extra to make it mutter. We have a Mishnah in Trumas. You're not allowed to add to make it nullified. Gemara says, that's because Truma is a biblical law. But in rabbinic law, which is the laws of muktzah, with this wood, which is muktzah, because it wasn't designated before Yom Tov that you were going to burn this wood, it was still attached to the tree. In rabbinic law, you're allowed to nullify things that are prohibited rabbinically. Right. You have to add, make it nullified. Okay. We go back to something that we said before. We spoke about the egg, that it doesn't become batal. It doesn't become nullified. Why? We said because it's a davar sheish lamatirin. Why should you rely on the bittul? We can just wait for the evening. So over here, why should you rely on bittul of the wood? Just wait for the evening and burn it tonight. The Gemara says, that's only. What does it mean you're relying? You're going to use it today. This is if while you're using it, it exists. But over here, the benefit that you're getting from it is the heat that comes out of it, because you're using it to cook. It's Yom Tov, or maybe for warmth, whatever it is, it's the heat that's coming out of it. Well, when does the heat come out of it? As it's being consumed, as it's being destroyed. So as it's being destroyed, that's when you're getting it. Rav Ashi says that you have to be concerned about Davar Shish L'Matirin is not batal. We should wait for it tonight. But that's only if it exists. But here, it doesn't really exist when you're getting the benefit. I don't know why they have to quote Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi's din was while you're destroying it, you're getting the benefit as it's every drop of heat that's coming out is the heat is coming from the destruction of the existing. Yeah. Any English words, just ask us. Okay. See, Rav Ashi did something else. Rav Ashi added one more point. He says that we consider a derabanan, a davar sheish l'matin that's a derabanan. We also don't say that's speika teres. That's what really Rav Ashi did. I mean, we quote this name of Rav Ashi. Okay. Itmar. Here we're up to another case of a machlekes Rav and someone else, where Rav assessed halachas like Rav. Itmar. Shnei yamim tovim shel galius. 2 days Yom Tov. Why 2 days Yom Tov? Because in the exile, we didn't have the information. So we had to keep 2 days Yom Tov. Why? Because every month is either 29 days or 30 days, which means the 30th day could have been right the first day of the month, or the 31st day could have been the first of the month. So we keep 2 days with, let's say, we're talking about Sukkot and Pesach. We keep the 15th as Yom Tov. But it could have been that really the 15th was really tomorrow. And so what we call the 16th is also Yom Tov. So Rav says, no, the B'zeh muteres b'zeh. Rav says if it's late on one day, the second day Yom Tov, you can eat the egg. It's very different than what Rav held by Shabbos and Yom Tov. Over there, we said Rav held of Hachana, that it needs to be prepared on a weekday. Now we're saying, what do you mean it needs to be prepared on a weekday? One of these is a weekday. It's, if today is Yom Tov, then yesterday was not Yom Tov, and it was late yesterday. If yesterday was Yom Tov, and it was late yesterday, then today is a regular weekday. I'm allowed to eat it on a Sunday. I'm allowed to, no problem. Ravasi says it's asur. If it's late on the first day, it's asur on the second day. Maybe Ravasi holds that it's one kedusha. That's what we tried to say before when explaining Rav. When we were talking about Shabbos and Yom Tov, we weren't able to say that. But let's say over here, Ravasi holds that both days of Yom Tov, Sheni, Shalgalias is all one kedusha. The only problem is Ravasi Mavdil Miyem Matav Chavri. Ravasi would actually say Havdalah in between the first day and the second day of Yom Tov. Now, what that means is that he's keeping the second day. If he's keeping the second day Yom Tov, it's clearly just a doubt, because he held the first day was Yom Tov. He has to make Havdalah, and then he keeps whatever he does on the second day. But he's doing a Havdalah. It's clearly not kedusha achas. The Gemara explains like this. It says, Ravasi Sfukim Esaptule. You're right about the doubt. However, it wasn't just that it was a doubt the second day. Ravasi doesn't know if it's Kedusha Achas or not. So therefore, when it comes to the egg, he holds strict that it's Kiddush Achas. He can't eat it if it's late on the first day, he can't eat it on the second day. But he also doesn't know if maybe the second day is not really Yom Tov. And so therefore he makes Havdalah. So he does both. Just in case the first day is the real Yom Tov and the second day is nothing. Amar Rab Zera says, Kavaseda Ravasi Mistabra. Ravasi makes sense. The Yidna, I'll prove it to you. Yadinam B'Kviya Diyarcha. We know the calendar. We know the first day is Yom Tov. Because Dinan Trei Yomin, we still keep 2 days. This is Reb Zera. He lived he's put, instead of with Rabbah in Bavel, he's put near Rabba Bo in Eretz Yisrael. But he started off in Bavel. He's in the generation of Rabbah. A little bit. He's an Amarian. Now, what's happening here is a discussion, what really is Yom Tov Sheni? Is Yom Tov Sheni a 100% Yom Tov that the sages instituted that you have to celebrate the second day Yom Tov as Yom Tov, that it's a Vadai? Or is Yom Tov Sheni just a suffix? Because of the doubt, that's why you have to keep it. Because the question is, what happens if we get rid of the doubt? Would Yom Tov Sheni go away? So Ravasi wasn't clear about that. And therefore he says that Yom Tov Sheni doesn't go away. And therefore really it's a solid Yom Tov. And that's why an egg that's laid on the first one, it continues to be usher on the second day. That was Ravasi's concern. Now Reb Zera says Ravasi must be right. Because look at us. We have a calendar already set. We know the calculations. We know what day is really the first of the month because of our calendar. And nevertheless, we keep 2 days Yom Tov. So that must be that it's not a doubt that we don't know. And really, if this day is Yom Tov, then that day is not Yom Tov. If this is not Yom Tov, then that day is Yom Tov. That's not what's going on here. We know which day is Yom Tov is, and nevertheless, we keep both days. It's a Vadai. Oh, that we're going to see soon. That's going to come up. Yeah. We'll see soon. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, different than Reb Zera, Kavasei de Rav Mistabra. It's really the other way. More like Rav. That Rav said that if the egg is laid on one day, it's mutter on the second day. Why? Because we have a Mishnah. Originally, they would have torches, and they would go to the mountaintops. And each mountaintop, there would be people there. They would light a fire, and the fire would go up, and there would be smoke and fire, and that would send a message to the next mountain. And they would do this on the 29th or 30th day of the month to say that the Edom came, that it's Rosh Chodesh. I guess the 30th of the month. The 30th of the month, that would be considered Rosh Chodesh, and then that means it was only a 29-day month, the previous month, and Rosh Chodesh starts right away. So they would put up these fires, in this way the news would travel all the way into Bavel. However, Mishakilkalu Akutim, the Kutim, the Samaritans, they would start these fires. They would send messages, and it wasn't accurate. So Eskinishiyu Shluchim Yoitzim, they changed it. What they changed was, instead of using fires, we have to send actually people by foot. Okay. Now, Abaya says, let's say the Kutim would disappear. Sounds good. No more enemies. What would we do? The then we would send the fire. We would send the messages with fires on each mountaintop along the mountain range, and then we would only have one day Yom Tov. Wherever, and look at it like this: however far the shluchim go, it's also one day. My time of why do we keep 2 days? Because they sent a message. You should keep it anyway for 2 days. Zimnin, it's possible. The Gazri Malchus Kuzera. Right. Right. So he was suggesting like this. He was saying that he was suggesting that this is not a real decree. It's only because of the situation that we needed to keep 2 days because we couldn't figure out what day was Yom Tov. But if we could get back the messages, and then it would only be a 1 day Yom Tov. And wherever the messenger actually got, it is really a 1 day Yom Tov. In other words, the messenger on foot, it is really a 1 day Yom Tov. Now the only thing is that why do we keep 2 days? If we know the calendar, it says because they said Hizaru b'minag avisechem b'yadechem. Zimnin d'gazri malchus k'zeira basila kalkule. There was a concern that maybe we won't be able to do the calculations. Why is that? There may be decrees from the government, and we'll forget Torah. We'll forget how to do the calendar, and we're going to end up making the wrong month 29 days, the wrong month 30 days. We're going to end up eating chametz on Pesach. That's the problem. So we have to keep 2 days. What's the conclusion over here? Does that mean that an egg that's laid on the first day is mutter on the second day because it's not a real institution? It's just, trust me, just keep the second day because you don't know what's going to happen. That's sort of like what it is. Hizaru b'minag avisechem. It's really just a minhag. Really, it's not necessary. That's what Abaye seems to be saying. Really, it's not necessary to keep 2 days. It's just we don't know what's going to happen, so you keep 2 days. Okay. If you remember, Rava paskins like Rav in 3 cases. The first case was Shabbos that follows. It's followed by a Yom Tov, or the opposite. It's late on the first day. You can't eat it on the second day. That was Rav's opinion. So that becomes halach, even though it was an argument with Rav and Rav Yochanan. Now we have a machlekes Rav and Rav Asi, where Rav is lenient on 2 day Yom Tov. If it's late on the first day, you can eat it on the second day. Here, Rav says the halacha is like Rav. And now we have the third case. Itmar, a statement. Shnei Yom Tovim shel Rosh Hashanah, 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Okay, here it's a little different. Rav and Shmuel d'Amri Tarvayu nolda b'zeh asura b'zeh. Rav and Shmuel both say that the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah is really one big day. And if an egg is laid on the first day, it's also asur on the second day. In other words, the institution of 2 days of Rosh Hashanah is not an institution because of a doubt. It's an institution that even the Beis Din itself would make. The Tanan, as taught in the Mishnah, see, the way it would work is like this. After the 29th day, on the 30th day of Elul, no, it's the 29th day by night, they would have to stop doing malachas. It wasn't Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah, but it could become Rosh Hashanah if the witnesses are going to come anytime during the night or during the day, and they'll testify. They testify during the day, but it's going to become Rosh Hashanah possibly, or maybe not. But they had to, because of the doubt, they had to separate from work. So originally, let's say they didn't come all morning. They would come later in the afternoon. So you know how long Rosh Hashanah would be? The last half hour of the day would end up being the real Rosh Hashanah, and the following day would be Mutter, would be days of the month. And Yom Kippur would be 10 days from the day they had Rosh Hashanah, just for a few hours, or for a half hour, whenever they came. So B'Rishonim Mekam Litzchedes Kol Yom Kulei. Pamachas, but one time, the witnesses came late. In the Skalkal Levim Bashir, the Levim had already said the afternoon song of the day. They sang the afternoon song. They sang a regular weekday song, not the Yom Tov, not the Rosh Hashanah song. Yeah, Taishvus asks, that's what you're worried about. What about the Karban Musaf that they didn't bring? They brought the Karban Shal Bein Arbaim. Taishvus says, well, they brought the Karban Musaf after the Tamid Shal Bein. You're not allowed to do that. Says, yeah, L'chadchila, you're not allowed to do that. But they brought the Karban Musaf. The whole problem was that at the Tamid Shal Bein Arbaim, they sang the wrong song. So because of that, Hiskino, they instituted, they closed the court. What happens if the Edom show up? Too late. Tomorrow it's going to be Rosh Hashanah. But when's Yom Kippur going to be? Yom Kippur is going to be 10 days from tomorrow. They close the court. They literally close the court. And they have to come the next day. They would keep that day holy anyway, even though tomorrow is the real Rosh Hashanah. But they would keep the first day as Yom Tov also. Now, what that tells us is that even though there was no doubt, because they instituted tomorrow to be Rosh Hashanah to the extent that Yom Kippur is 10 days from tomorrow, but they still kept today as Yom Tov. That means that the institution of a 2-day Yom Tov on Rosh Hashanah was instituted in a Bezdin, not as a doubt, as a real 2 days. It wasn't maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That's what you say if there's no Bezdin there. But here there's a Bezdin, and they're still keeping it as a 2-day Yom Tov. So that means that it's 100% Yom Tov. It's not the doubt, maybe yes, maybe no. And so therefore, if an egg is laid on one day, it continues to the second day to be also. Okay. Amar Rabba. Rabba says, who said this? This was Rav and Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel made this statement that an egg that's laid on one day continues to the second day, and they have a proof. Proof is that they continued that at the time when the Bezdin was active, they actually had a 2-day Yom Tov. Amar Rabba, mitakanas Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai ve'elach beitzim uteres. From Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and on, the halacha changed. Now, this is clearly not what Rav and Shmuel are saying, but this is Rabba saying this, that the Beitzos Muteres Ditanan, as it was taught in the Mishnah, Mishacharav Beis HaMikdash. Once the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Shemekabla made the Sachedesh Kol Hayom. You see, what was the issue? The issue was that if the Beis HaMikdash would get the news too late, then the song of the day would end up being the wrong song. That was an issue in the Beis HaMikdash. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, says, well, we don't have that issue anymore because the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. So if that's the case, we don't have to close the court by mincha time. We can keep it open. So therefore, we'll have a 1-day Yom Tov, and that day Yom Tov will even be less than a day. It will just be from the afternoon and on. Very nice. An egg that's laid on one day will be mutter on the next day because we took off that institution of a 2-day Rosh Hashanah. Amalei Abaya says to Rabba, Abaya grew up in Rabba's house. Says, what are you doing to me? Says, Rav Shmuel, Dar mitavayo be'asur. But Rav and Shmuel said that it's asur. Rav and Shmuel are after Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. They're several hundred years after Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Amalei, Rabbi responds, Amin Allah chana Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. You hear what I'm telling you? I'm telling you Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Vat Amatli Rav and Shmuel, and you're telling me about the youngsters, Rav and Shmuel. I'm telling you Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Ula Rav and Shmuel kasha masnisin. But what do Rav and Shmuel do? I mean, that's not an answer. Like Rav and Shmuel have to have some logic. Gemara says, like kasha, halon v'halahu. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was dealing in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, they had the Bezdin. The Bezdin, the witnesses would come in the afternoon. The afternoon would be Rosh Hashanah, and the following day would not be Rosh Hashanah. In Bavel, that's not how it worked. In Bavel, they kept 2 days. When would they keep the Yom Kippur? 10 days from the first day. You'd have to get a message, or the calendar. But in Eretz Yisrael, you're right. In Eretz Yisrael, Rosh Hashanah is only 1 day. And in Bavel, Rosh Hashanah is 2 days. And that's why Rav and Shmuel can actually say, but it's a real 2 days. Yeah. Now, what actually happened was that it was unclear if this is the Maskana Sagamara. And there was a time, there's a machlekes, if there was a time that Rosh Hashanah was actually 1 day in Eretz Yisrael. At a certain point in history, it became very clear, maybe because of different machlekes, and they instituted that Rosh Hashanah in Eretz Yisrael is 2 days. What, year 1? No, I'm talking about maybe like 700 years ago. The halacha may have switched. I think the Ramban held that Rosh Hashanah is 1 day in Eretz Yisrael. The Ramban went to Eretz Yisrael. But now Rosh Hashanah is 2 days in Eretz Yisrael, right? Across the board. Anyone keeps 1 day? No. No. Okay. Okay. Let's see if we can get through this. Let's try. See how far we can get. What time is it? Okay. Rabbi Yosef Amar, Rabbi Yosef says, it didn't change. The egg is still usher. I know that we now accept testimony in the Bezdin in the afternoon, since Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. But the egg that was laid on the first day of Rosh Hashanah remains usher on the second day as well. My time, what's the reason for that? He says, Havidavar Sheba Minyan. This was something that was established by vote in the Sanhedrin, and they never took the vote again. And even though it's switched regarding accepting testimony, but the egg is still us. Okay. Amar Rav Yosef Mina Aminallah. Rav Yosef says, you know where I get this from? I'll tell you. The Ksiv, it's written in the pasuk. Leichem alem shuva lachem la'aleichem. After the giving of the Torah, it says that they should go back to their tents, to their wives. And it says, after the blast of the shofar, then they can go up the mountain. And also, Ritanya or Tanan, Karim Rabbi Hayailu Shirlaim Alachie Mechel Tzad, Mizui Tchuma, Eilat, I think, Minatzafan, Vakravis, Minadaram, Lum, Minamayra, Yardin, Minamizrach. It says like this, Karim Rabbi. The 4th year, the first 3 years of a vineyard is called Arla, for all trees. The 4th year is called Neta Ravai or Kerem Ravai. It's much like this, if it applies to all trees or just a vineyard. Now, the way we treat Ravai, Kerem Ravai, the 4th year, is similar to Ma'aser Sheni. Just like Ma'aser Sheni, you would take to Yerushalayim and you would eat it there. But if it was too heavy, you could redeem it on a coin, and you would take the coins to Yerushalayim, and you would buy food. So too with Ravai, the same thing. It's fruits, it's grapes. Kerem Ravai, it's grape. You would take it to Yerushalayim. If it's too heavy, you would redeem it. However, they instituted that anything that's within 1 day's walk from Yerushalayim should not be redeemed. Why? Why didn't they allow this redemption? And we just got the map of what's considered a 1-day walk. Eilat, it's probably not. It must be a different Eilat. In Akravas, in Lud, in the Yarden, all of those are 1-day walk from Yerushalayim. What's the reason why you're not allowed to redeem the grapes? It says because we wanted actual fruits to be in the stands, in the fruit stands in Yerushalayim. So we don't want people just showing up with money. We want people showing up with fruits, because it's good for Yerushalayim that there should be fruits there that are ready to buy. Vitanya was taught in the Brisa. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus, he had fields. One of them was a vineyard that was in the east of Lud, near Kfar Tavi, which is within a 1 day's walk to Yerushalayim. And he wanted to give it to the poor. He didn't want to actually take it himself. It was difficult for him to take it himself to Yerushalayim, but he held that it had to go to Yerushalayim because it's in a 1 day's walk. Amalei Talmidov, his students told him, Rebbe, kvar nimnu alecha chavercha v'tirua. You don't have to bring it to Yerushalayim anymore. You could redeem it. Your friends have already taken a vote in the Sanhedrin, and they allowed it. They allowed you to redeem fruits of the 4th year, even though it's within a day's walk of Yerushalayim. Man chavercha, who's your friend? It's really a student. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. It's Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Time, okay. Well, in the explanation why Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai would allow this is because we wanted fruits to be in the stands, the fruit stands in Yerushalayim, because people would be Eila Regel. And we wanted the people that go to Yerushalayim, they should have fruits, they should look so nice, look at all these nice fruits. But once the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, that wasn't necessary. So we said, it's no problem, you could redeem it. And you just go to Yerushalayim, you take it to Yerushalayim with the coin. So Rabbi Eliezer didn't need to be mafkir the fruits to let the poor bring it to Yerushalayim, because it was already decided. Now the Gemara explains, this is all Rabbi Yosef talking. Rabbi Yosef says that the egg that's laid on the first day is also on the second day, because the Sanhedrin never took a vote again. And he proves that everything that was forbidden by vote needs to be re-voted on to become permissible. And this is his proof. His proof is like this. Time of the nimnu. The reason is because they re-voted. Alay nimnu lai. But if they didn't re-vote on that, it would still be us. Okay. What were we talking about when we said that there was a command from Hashem, go back to your tents? And that was also the trumpet, that they could go up the mountain. What happened over there was they said, it's the law was you should separate from your wives 3 days before the giving of the Torah. If you receive the Torah, everyone will be pure. And don't go up the mountain until the giving of the Torah. Once the giving of the Torah was done, then there was no problem. The problem is that we didn't need a second command afterwards. Go back to your wives, and you can now go up the mountain. Once the Torah was given, you didn't need to have another command on that. It was over. It must be that once something is forbidden, it has to be reestablished that it's permitted. That's what Rabbi Yosef is proving. The Gemara says, "My va'omer." What is this pasuk? You're bringing another pasuk to teach us this. What are you bringing the pasukim for? It says, "Hachi kamar michti." This is what it means. It says for 3 days you should be separated from your wives, and then it says, then it says, go back to your wives. Lamali. Why does it have to say that? It doesn't have to say once the giving of the Torah was over, then automatically they were only supposed to be separated because of the giving of the Torah. Shema mina. You see from this, kol davar shebed minyan. This is not really a minyan. It's not a Sanhedrin. It's the Eberstein. Anything that's taken a vote or anything that's established or any rule, you need to have another decision in the Supreme Court to retract the case law, the law that was already determined. Okay. Maybe this is not a good proof, because you could say, it wasn't saying that you're allowed to go back to your wife. It was a command that you must go back to your wife, because the person's obligated to be with his wife at the times that she is expecting him. So Tashema, so that's why we bring another pasuk. That they are allowed to go up the mountain after the shofar blast. Michti, 1 second. It says that the sheep and the cattle should not graze by the mountain until the giving of the Torah. Once the giving of the Torah is over, it's fine. So why do they have to have the shofar blast? It means because you have to actually permit it. You might tell me that that's only by biblical laws that has to be taken away specifically with an actual command. But maybe by rabbinic institutions, you don't need another bezdin to take it away. So Tashma, Kerem Revai. So come look at what happened by Kerem Revai. Now the rule of Kerem Revai is a biblical rule. It has to be taken to Yerushalayim. But the rabbis instituted that you can't redeem it within a 1 day's walk of Yerushalayim. That's a rabbinic rule. So, Kerem Revai derabanan, v'ka'amri lei kvar nimna lecha chavercha ve'tiruah. And he tells him, or they told Rabbi Eliezer, that your friends have gotten together and they've allowed that you don't need to take it directly to Yerushalayim. You could redeem it and take the money to Yerushalayim. You see, but it had to be a vote in the Sanhedrin. Maybe you'll say that the egg became permissible also. An egg that was laid on the first day of Rosh Hashanah is permissible on the second day. So the Gemara says, Ki imnu, what type of vote did they take? Edus. That's only that the testimony is accepted after Mincha. But but they didn't take a vote about the egg. The egg is still forbidden. Abaya says to Rabbi Yosef, 1 second. Atu beya b'minyan mihava. Did they ever forbid the egg? They never forbade the egg anyway. Beya be'edus talyum milsa. It's our edus, it's a beya. It's 3 edus, it's 3 beya. Abaya has a question on the whole premise of Rabbi Yosef is based on something that he doesn't accept. There was never a rule that the egg is forbidden on the first day. The rule was that we don't accept testimony on the first day after Mincha. But once that's over, then we do accept testimony. Once Rabbi Yechim came and said that we can accept testimony after Mincha, so therefore Rosh Hashanah is only 1 day, and therefore the egg should be forbidden only for 1 day. Why do we keep the second day? Because of a doubt. Rav Ada Rav Shalman Tavayim Beit Kaluchas, these 2 rabbis from Beit Kaluchas, Amri, they said, they said we still have to keep it. Even after Rabbi Yechim and Zakkai, an egg that's laid on the first day is still usher on the second day. What's the reason? My timer. Mehiri Yibana Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash is going to come back speedily. Amen. People will say, last year, did we not eat the egg on the second day? You see, why did Rabbi Yechim and Zakkai say that you can start to accept testimony after Mincha? Because there's no sacrifices. And there's no issue of messing up the song of the Levites in the afternoon sacrifice. So therefore, we can accept the testimony in the afternoon. But this coming year, Rosh Hashanah, the Beis HaMikdash is going to be there. We're going to accept the testimony after the sacrifice. It's going to mess it up. So therefore, we'll have to keep the following day as Yom Tov. And therefore, the following day, if it's both days Yom Tov, based on the psak of the Bezdin, so then it should be usher for both days. Hastanami nechol. People are going to say last year we ate it, this year we can also eat it. They won't know that last year was really 2 separate holinesses, and this year it's really only 1 because the Bezdin doesn't accept it after Mincha. If that's the case, Eidas Nami Loy Nakabel, they're obviously still accepting testimony. If that's the case, that you have a concern that next year people are going to say the egg is permissible, so we should stop accepting testimony also, because people are going to say next year that we're allowed to accept testimony after Mincha, even though the Beis Hamikdash is there. And there's a problem with accepting testimony if the Beis Hamikdash is there. Why? Because it's going to mess up so why should we do it now? People are going to say we did it now. The Beis Hamikdash isn't there, but next year the Beis Hamikdash is going to be there. If we accept testimony now without the Beis Hamikdash after Mincha, the next year when the Beis Hamikdash is there, we'll say, well, we did it last year, we should continue to do it. And meanwhile, there's going to be a problem. So, Edis Namilay Makabal, my time, I'm here, you bana Beis Hamikdash, Dakan Mila Kabal Sachedesh Kaliyam Kulay. Did we not accept testimony the whole day? There was no Beis Hamikdash, there was no reason not to. But Hashta Namin Kabal, we should now accept testimony the whole day. The Gemara says, whoa, 1 second. You're making a comparison here. It's not a good comparison. Hachi Hashta. Hasam Edis Masur LeBezdin. When it comes to testimony, it's the Bezdin that's going to know the difference between last year and this year. But Beitza Masur Lechal, but eggs, it's not no one's coming to Bezdin to ask about the eggs. They're going to make the psak on their own, and they're going to end up eating the egg after the Beis Hamikdash is there on the second day Yom Tov, and they're going to eat the egg on the second day Yom Tov. And really, they didn't accept testimony on the second day Yom Tov. They didn't accept testimony after the first day, in the afternoon. It's really one kedusha. It should be aser. Rava says, Rava says it's also that the egg is still aser. Rabbi Yechon Mitzaki agreed to this. He agrees that 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are both Kodesh. Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai just said that we're going to count Yom Kippur from the first day. But how long we're going to keep Yom Tov? He says we're going to keep Yom Tov for 2 days. If that's the case, so it's still Kedusha Achas. Okay. Now, Amar Rava, and Rava says, we recap on what we said before. There's 3 halachas that Rava says we paskin like Rav. The first one was Shabbos and Yom Tov. If its egg is laid on one, it's asr on the next. The second one was 2 days Yom Tov of Goliath, that it's mutter. What's laid on one is mutter on the other one. He argued with Ravasi. And that on Rosh Hashanah, Be'esh Nolda Bezu is a Surah Bezu, that Rosh Hashanah is really one long day. Okay, let's leave it over here.